Hello and welcome to another Canguro English Daily Digest. My name is Christian and today is Tuesday. Best day of the week. Tuesday rocks. Today I want to talk about fake news. I want to talk about fallacious, illogical and untrue thinking and reasoning, okay? But before I can talk about that and before I can talk about today's word of the day, I need to tell you a little story about a group of ancient Greeks. Now, I don't know if you've seen the film My Big Fat Greek Wedding, but in that film, there's a really funny character and he is the father of the main character. And in the film, throughout the whole film, he's always claiming that the Greeks invented everything. Like, telephones, yeah, the Greeks invented that. Mixing desks, yep, that was a Greek invention, you know, Socrates and, yes, motor cars, yes, in Greece we had the first motor car, so, for example, right? And obviously, a lot of what he says isn't true. But one thing that the Greeks did invent and perfect, and something that was really advanced for its time, was the way that the ancient Greeks used rhetoric and critical thinking and logic and philosophy as kind of tools for teaching and living life and thinking. And that was really advanced for its time. And so I want to talk specifically about a group of ancient Greeks called the Sophists. Now, the Sophists, they get their name from a Greek word which is sophos. And sophos means skilled. Okay? So these were people who were really kind of educated and skilled and good at their job. And their job was to basically be critical thinkers, to use logic and rhetoric and discussion to find truth and be correct. Right? So that was their job. And so in theory, they should have been very respected and popular people. But there was a problem. There was two problems. So the first problem is that a lot of rich Greeks, like emperors and politicians, and they would contract these sophists to work for them and to basically be like teachers, to help them to think critically and to use logic to, live a better life and be a stronger ruler, right? And these emperors and politicians and these rich people would pay the sophists a lot of money. And so the sophists in general were quite wealthy. And nobody likes rich people. Right? That was the first problem. The second problem was that because they were kind of obsessed with logic and critical thinking and finding truth, they were kind of a little bit annoying, a little bit irritating, because, you try to have a discussion with them and they were always nitpicking, trying to find a fault with your argument or trying to show you that you were using the wrong language. They were kind of irritating people. So it's a bad combination, irritating and rich. So that brings us to today's word of the day. And it's a great example of how a word can be contaminated by culture. So here we have this word sophos, the root word sophos, which means skilled. And so the word split into these two different kind of roots. So we have some words from sophos which are good and positive, and a lot of other words from sophos which are really negative. So the negative word, for example, is today's word of the day, sophistry. Sophistry is false, illogical, fallacious, uncritical thinking, right? It took on all the negative connotations from those sophists. So sophistry would be, for example, to say that the earth is flat. That's an example of sophistry. It's a noun. Clearly, any logical thinker knows that the earth isn't flat, right? But then we have all of these other good words from the root of culture and skill. For example, sophisticated. My mobile telephone is a very sophisticated piece of technology. It has a lot of talents. It's very skilled. It can do a lot of different things, good and bad, right? And today I want to talk about a piece of sophistry that's very, very important, and that is the belief, the fundamental belief that a lot of people hold, which is that children are better at learning languages. And it's important because a lot of adults, they give up, right? They give up because they see children learning so fast and so easily. So adults give up, or they don't even try because they say, I'm too old. I'm 35. I'm never going to learn a language. You have to be 5 years old to be successful at learning a language, right? So for those reasons, for those two reasons, because people give up, or because people don't even try, it's important to understand that thinking that children are better at learning languages than adults is sophistry. Sophistry. And so I have a piece of research here by Karen Lichtman from Northern Illinois University. It's from 2016. And it's called Age and Learning Environment. Are Children Implicit Second Language Learners? So they took a group of children and a group of adults, and they taught each group an invented language, an artificial language. They taught them in two different ways. So first they got the children and they taught them some of this language implicitly, basically by using play and games and stuff like that. And they were relying on the children to notice, waiting on them to notice how the language works, right? And they did the same with the adults. They took the adults and they taught them implicitly. They played games and da-da-da. And then they repeated it again, but they taught the children explicitly with instruction. This is the rule, and you need to learn the rule. A bit like traditional instruction. And then they did the same with the adults. They taught them explicitly. And so some of the children were as young as 3 years old. Now, well, this is a whole nother thing. I have to talk about this another time. So anyway, then at the end of this experiment, they tested them. They tested the adults and the children about how much they had noticed about masculine and feminine nouns, about how the grammar worked, okay? And in basically all of the measures of language, the adults did better. The adults were better at noticing, they were better at learning the grammar, they were better at, right? Okay. So, but that seems so obvious. I mean, clearly an adult with adult reasoning and with adult logic and problem solving, of course they're going to be better at learning than children, right? So why do so many people think that children are better? Well, one of the reasons is because of accent. Because they hear children talking with this perfect accent and think, well, their level of English must be really good, but they're not related. They're not related. But the main reason that children are better at learning languages than adults is because they spend so much time in class learning. And adults don't. Adults go to work. Adults sit in front of the television, drink beer. Adults have got better things to do, like do the washing, clean the house. But children are just learning all the time. And it just shows that, like everything with learning a language, there's no secret. There's no secret. The only thing that's important is contact with the language. That's what makes the difference. I'm Christian, this is Canguro English. I'll see you in class.